The bargain of the century. The orbital shipyard above Tau Ceti prime stank of desperation and rust. Figuratively, of course. No air, no smell. But Jack Holden swore he could still taste the sweat of 1,000 bad decisions lingering in the recycled atmosphere. Lot 72. The auctioneer barked over the comms. Decommissioned freighter. Classified junk tier. One working engine. No warranty, no guarantees. Starting bid, 200 credits. Jack leaned forward in his dented pilot's chair. The freighter spinning slowly on the hollow display looked terrible. Scratched hull plating, patched fuel lines, and carbon scoring across the ventral fins. It was beautiful. He tapped the bid key. 200. Sold. A few chuckles echoed through the auction platform's static feed. Jack didn't care. This was the only ship in his price range, and she'd get him off this rock. That was all that mattered. Hours later, Jack stood in the belly of his new prize, staring at peeling bulkheads and smelling mold where the air scrubbers had long since given up. "Welcome aboard the Sundance, sir," he muttered, thumping the nearest wall. Home sweet junk pile. The old AI was dead, systems offline. Most controls were manual, or at least they would be if half the wiring wasn't corroded. But she had a hull, a functioning warp drive, and barely enough fuel for one jump. It would have to do. Then he saw it, hidden behind a collapsed panel in the aft cargo hold. A black pod, smooth and sealed, lights still blinking faintly. Hibernation unit? Jack frowned, brushing dust off the control screen. The unit beeped, as if in recognition, then unlocked with a soft hiss. Inside, lying motionless under layers of semi-organic mesh, was a woman. No, not quite a woman. Something more. Pale lavender skin. Silver-blue hair floating in stasis gel. Delicate ridges running along her temple. And unmistakably alien. Whoa, what the hell? The pod opened fully. A long breath escaped her lips as her eyes fluttered open, glimmering gold in the dim light. She sat up slowly, scanning her surroundings, and then focused on him. "You are my captain now," she said, voice soft but perfectly clear in standard galactic. Jack took a step back. "Wait, what?" "I'm Kaelari of Velari. I was bonded to this vessel, Sundance, sir, through the rite of the Starbound Pact. My duty is to serve my ship, and its rightful master." She stood gracefully, nearly Jack's height, and gave a small bow. "It seems that is now you. You came with the ship? Like, part of the deal." She tilted her head. "I was not a slave. I chose to bind myself to the ship's command systems. I am its living co-pilot. The captainship and my bond, transferred to you upon purchase." Jack rubbed his forehead. "I bought a junk freighter for 200 credits and got an alien bride thrown in." She stiffened. "Bride is a limited word. The bond is sacred. You own nothing. But I am yours by ancient law, unless you reject the pact." "Okay, fine. Then I reject it." Kaelari went still. "To do so would require severance. I would be compelled to undergo the ritual of ending. Painful. Fatal." Jack stared at her, jaw slack. "You're saying if I don't want you as whatever this is, you die?" She nodded, almost apologetically. "It is Velari law." "Well, that's insane," he muttered. "I'm not killing someone because I didn't read the fine print." Her expression softened slightly. "Then we are bound, until such time as you release me by completing the Union Oath. Or until death. Yours or mine." Jack backed away toward the control room. This ship better not come with any more surprises. Kaelari followed silently, her gaze calm, assessing. "Captain, may I suggest beginning with life support? This vessel is barely habitable." "I noticed," Jack grumbled, as she knelt beside a console and began rerouting circuits with precise movements. Jack caught himself staring. This wasn't what he signed up for. He just wanted to get off Tau Ceti, maybe run cargo again, maybe drink a beer that didn't taste like disappointment. Instead, he now had a half-dead ship, a mysterious alien bonded to him by some ancient ritual, and a growing suspicion that this was about to get a lot more complicated than he ever imagined. Bound by circuit and vow. Jack Holden had worked with alien tech before. Half his early cargo runs had involved jury-rigging life support with duct tape and prayer. But this was different. Kaelari stood in the engine room of the Sundancer, her hands moving like flowing water across the ship's inner circuitry. Where Jack would have seen fried wires and a headache, she saw patterns, delicate, almost living connections. This ship was grown, not built, she said, her fingers brushing the wall. Velari designs are partially biosynthetic. That's why it still responds to me. I figured it was just stubborn, Jack replied, crouched beside her with a wrench. Like me, Kaelari smiled faintly, not quite laughter but close. It may be stubborn, but she remembers. Over the next 3 days, they worked in quiet coordination. Jack would identify what he thought was a critical failure. Kaelari would correct him, then show him how Velari tech didn't obey normal logic. He patched coolant pipes. She sang into power conduits. Literally, her voice caused dormant systems to hum back to life, harmonics aligning in ways that bypassed mechanical failure. It wasn't magic, but it felt like it. Why does your voice do that? Jack asked during one long repair session. The ship and I are symbiotic. My physiology resonates with its architecture. In bonding with the Sundancer, I became a part of it. We share command pathways. Jack scratched his head. So when I bought this ship, you were bundled software? Her eyes narrowed. I'm not software, Captain. He held up a hand. Right. Bad joke. Despite their awkward start, Jack was beginning to admire her. Kaelari wasn't just a passenger or ancient relic. She was an asset, and unlike any engineer or AI he'd ever met, she had an intuitive grasp of how this ship breathed. Still, something about the bond sat heavy on his chest. That night, Jack sat in the cockpit with a beer, the one luxury he'd bought with his last few credits. The stars glittered outside like they always did. Cold, distant. Kaelari entered silently, as always, walking barefoot despite the frigid floor. She wore a faded cloak now, something she'd fashioned from a tattered emergency blanket. Practical and strangely regal. Why do you serve? Jack asked. She tilted her head. Because I chose to. You chose to lock yourself in a sleep pod for what decades? Just to be part of a ship no one even remembered. I chose to preserve my people's legacy. The Velari do not live for comfort. We live for purpose. He stared at her. And your purpose is me? She said nothing for a moment, then sat across from him. My people were destroyed by betrayal. Our last rite, the Starbound Pact, was created to carry our memory through space. The Sundancer was my sacred task. When I awoke and saw you, I feared dishonor. But you have not treated me as a thing. That matters. Jack sighed. Yeah, but still feels wrong. This bond thing. How can I be your captain, or your partner, or whatever if I didn't even know I was signing up for it? Kaelari looked down at her hands. You can free me. No, not if it means you die. She met his eyes, gold and unwavering. Then we must redefine the bond. A silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but charged. You could leave, Jack offered. Find your own path. I could, she said, but I want to see what kind of captain you become. Perhaps I do not need to serve. Perhaps I can choose to walk beside. Jack raised his bottle in a half-toast. To new definitions. She touched her fingers to her temple in return, an old Velari gesture of respect. The next day, Jack woke to the smell of food. Real food. Kaelari stood at the galley station, plating something that looked like eggs with purple threads. Synth-grown fungus. High protein. I reactivated the food processors. Jack stared at the plate. You're serious? Would I joke about nutrition? He took a bite. It wasn't great, but it was warm and edible and probably wouldn't kill him. That made it the best meal he'd had in weeks. As they ate side by side, Jack felt the tension ease. Kaelari was no longer just a mystery sealed in a pod. She was his co-pilot, his engineer, and perhaps, just perhaps, someone who chose to stay not because of ancient law, but because of the future they might build together. The bride reclaimed. The Sundancer shimmered under newly restored power, her patched engines finally running a full diagnostic loop. She was still ugly, still held together with hope and hastily rerouted power conduits, but she flew. Jack and Kaelari had made 3 successful runs delivering minor cargo between border outposts. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to keep them moving, keep them free. But freedom Kaelari reminded him one evening, was never without a price. It started with the ship's proximity alert screaming through the hull. Jack rushed to the cockpit, Kaelari already there, scanning the starfield. A sleek black ship, twice their size, dropped out of hyperspace, blocking their path. No transponder, no hail, no warning. "Friend of yours?" Jack asked, hand inching toward the throttle. Kaelari's face paled. They were the sigil of the Velari remnant. Wait, the what now? A militant faction. Survivors. Fanatics. They believe in preservation through purity. They reject those who bind outside Velari law. They think you're what, defiled? Kaelari didn't answer. A voice cut through the comms, cold and resonant. "This is Commander Velsaran of the Velari remnant. Surrender the bonded one. The male has no claim." Jack tapped the mic, funny. "Last I checked, she wasn't a thing to claim. You're not Velari. You defy our sacred bond. I didn't ask for the bond. You accepted it. Now you must face the consequence." Kaelari turned to Jack, voice low. "If they board us, they will kill you. Then drag me away for ritual cleansing." "Not happening," Jack said, jaw tightening. "We run." The remnant ship fired a warning shot, skimming their shields. Systems groaned. The Sundancer couldn't take a prolonged firefight. Kaelari stood suddenly. "There is another way. I'm listening. I invoke the right of challenge. Ancient law, still recognized. It allows a captain, bonded or not, to defend their partnership by trial." "Trial? What kind of trial?" "Combat. Strategy. Honor." Jack looked at their barely functioning ship, then at the powerful Velari cruiser waiting outside. "That's not a trial. That's suicide." Kaelari met his gaze. "Not if you win. Not by their rules, by ours." An hour later, Jack stood on the hollowed-out husk of an asteroid, the remnant ship hovering nearby. Kaelari had brokered the terms, a neutral location. No weapons, no help. Just Jack and Velsaran, one-on-one. The remnant commander stepped forward, taller, armored in obsidian plating. His eyes glowed like cold fire. "You're a child, human," he sneered. "You cannot understand the sacred duty you've sullied." Jack cracked his knuckles. "Maybe not, but I know enough not to let anyone take her." The fight began. Velsaran was fast, inhumanly fast. A spin kick knocked Jack to the ground within seconds. Bones rattled, vision blurred, but Jack had fought dirty for years. Cargo haulers didn't survive pirate ambushes by playing fair. He rolled, flung a handful of ground dust into Velsaran's eyes, and followed with a shoulder ram. The impact surprised the alien, knocking him off balance. Velsaran roared and lunged, but Jack dodged, baited, used his smaller frame to maneuver around him, conserving strength. Minutes passed. Jack bled from his lip, his ribs screamed, but he was still standing. "You are unworthy," Velsaran hissed. Jack grinned through the pain. "Then why can't you beat me?" And then Kaelari stepped forward, not interfering, just watching. Her presence seemed to shake Velsaran. She wasn't afraid. She chose to stand beside the human. That hesitation cost him. Jack landed a brutal elbow to the alien's jaw, followed by a sweep that sent him crashing to the rock floor. Jack stood over him, panting. "Done." Velsaran glared up, then slowly nodded. "You fight like one of us." Kaelari stepped forward. "By Velari tradition, the trial is past. I choose my path. My bond is mine to define." There was a long silence. Then Velsaran rose, bowed stiffly, and returned to his ship. Back aboard the Sundancer, Kaelari tended to Jack's wounds silently, dabbing at bruises and cracked skin. "You could have died," she whispered. "Yeah," he winced. "But worth it. You fought not because of the bond, but because of me." He looked at her, exhaustion softening his expression. "You're not property, not my crew. You're Kaelari, and I want you to stay because you want to." She touched his hand, fingers warm and trembling. "Then I stay. As your partner. You're equal." Outside, the stars spun in silence. Inside, something new had begun, neither tradition nor accident. A bond forged not by law, but by choice. Stardust vows. The Sundancer drifted above the glowing rings of Callio's 9, her hull still scarred but whole. Jack stood at the observation window, sipping a lukewarm coffee substitute and watching the colors ripple across the gas giant surface. He'd never seen anything like it. Kaelari joined him, silent and graceful as always. She wore no armor now, just a simple, flowing garment made from emergency cloth and braided cords. She had woven her history into every fold. "I didn't think we'd make it this far," Jack said without turning. "I thought we'd break down, burn out, or get space somewhere between misfortune and stupidity." Kaelari smiled. "You underestimate your chaos. It is oddly effective." He chuckled. "Weird compliment, but I'll take it." Silence fell again, not out of discomfort, but familiarity. A shared peace had begun to grow between them, one forged by fire and trial and choice. But it wasn't over. Kaelari held out a small crystal, hexagonal, faintly glowing blue. "This is the core of the Starbound Pact, my ancestral bond to the Sundancer. As long as it exists, my fate remains bound to this ship and to you." Jack turned, frowning. "I thought we'd already figured that out." "We have," she said, "but I want this to be ours, not something left over from dead laws. If we are to remain together, let it be by our vow." He stared at the crystal. "You want to break the bond?" "No," Kaelari said softly. "I want to rewrite it." They stood in the engine chamber, where the ship's core pulsed weakly. Kaelari set the crystal into a socket hidden beneath a Velari symbol Jack still couldn't pronounce. She began to chant, not in galactic standard, but in her native tongue. The ship responded, low harmonic tremors coursing through the hull like distant thunder. Jack stepped forward, uncertain. "What do I do?" "Speak what you choose," she said. "Let the ship and I hear your truth." He swallowed, heart thumping. "Kaelari, I didn't buy a bride. I didn't ask for a bond. But I got something I didn't know I needed. A partner. A co-pilot. Someone who believes in me when I barely believe in myself." Her eyes shimmered. He continued, voice steadier now. "I don't want to command you. I don't want to own anything. I just want to choose you. Every damn day." The crystal flared with golden light, and the ship's systems surged. Life support rebalanced. Power conduits hummed to full capacity. Even the old AI flickered online for a brief moment before bowing out, silent and respectful. Kaelari looked up, golden eyes wet with something that looked remarkably like tears. "Then I choose you as well, Jack Holden. Captain, friend, mate." The bond reformed, not a shackle, but a thread. Not one of dominance, but mutual will. They left Callio's 9 the next morning, the Sundancer running better than she ever had. New contracts flooded in, freighters needing escort, colonies requesting Velari tech expertise, even a few independent traders offering alliance. Word of their duel against the Remnant had spread, quietly but steadily. Some whispered reverently about the bonded pair. Others scoffed at the idea of love between species. Jack didn't care. He had Kaelari. He had a ship. He had freedom. But most importantly, he had choice. And that was something rare in any corner of the stars. Late one cycle, as they floated above a blue-white moon untouched by terraforming, Jack and Kaelari stood side by side on the viewing deck again. She reached for his hand. He took it without hesitation. "Where to next, Captain?" she asked. Jack grinned. "Anywhere that's not boring. Got a whole galaxy out there." Kaelari tilted her head. "Then perhaps it's time to write our own legend." The ship hummed around them, responding to their shared command. The stars stretched ahead, infinite and waiting. Together they jumped,